Ground truth is the single most important concept in the FractionalBAS framework. It's not a marketing term, it's a measurement term. It means a direct, continuous record of what your building is actually doing, not what you think it's doing, and not what the commissioning documents say it should be doing, and not what a one-day audit saw in the afternoon the auditor walked through. If you don't have ground truth, every decision you make about that building is a guess. And most of those guesses are wrong in ways you cannot see and cannot anticipate. Hello, my name is Nicholas Napp, and today I'm going to walk through why a data layer has to come before any capital project in a small commercial building, and why the traditional order of operations in this industry produces bad outcomes so consistently. The way most buildings get improved today is kind of the equivalent of prescribing a standard list of medications, because on average they make populations healthier. Statins, antibiotics, vitamins, that works at a population level, but it's not how you want to be treated by your doctor. What you would want is a thorough ongoing physical exam that shows what's actually happening in your body, and then a handful of targeted interventions based on what the data shows. Monitoring first, treatment second. And guess what? Buildings are exactly the same. But the industry has a short list of standard interventions, a chiller upgrade, new roof membrane, an HVAC retrofit, that improve buildings on average. But your building and your building's issues are pretty unique. It's your building, and the difference between the standard list and the right list for your building and your set of circumstances is routinely thousands of dollars a year in operating cost, plus whatever capital you might have spent chasing what could be the wrong fix. Most small commercial buildings that try to improve themselves start with an energy audit. It seems like a logical place to begin. A level 1 audit costs around $3,500. A level 2 audit with more detailed load analysis costs around $10,000. And I'm not here to argue against audits. They are a genuinely useful tool. But an audit is a useful snapshot. And the problem is that your building doesn't exist just in that snapshot. It's a 12-month, 24-hour behavioral pattern. And an audit that happens on a Tuesday afternoon in March is not going to tell you much about what your building does on a Saturday night in August. It can't show you the conference wing that's been running full supply air every weekend for 2 years to meet the needs of a tenant that moved out some time ago and nobody remembered to update the schedule. It can't show you the zone where the setback is supposed to kick in at 5 p.m., but never has because an override was set once and forgotten about. And these aren't rare cases. They are the normal state of buildings that have been operating for years without a continuous data layer. Audits miss them because audits visit once. Ground truth catches them because ground truth watches every hour of every day. Here are some examples of what building owners consistently find in the first month of continuous monitoring. Number 1, a missing or broken nighttime setback. The system's supposed to change to a different temperature overnight when the building's not being used, and it doesn't. Maybe it hasn't for longer than anybody remembers, and that's costing you money. Number 2 is an occupancy schedule that no longer matches how the building is used. Maybe a tenant added evening hours several years ago, and the HVAC is still assuming 9 to 5. Number 3 is a deadband set so tight that the HVAC cycles on and off constantly, burning energy and wearing out equipment, without actually improving building comfort. Number 4, humidity drift in your shoulder seasons, so spring and fall when the system is technically off, but the space quietly climbs above 60% relative humidity for weeks at a time. And that's when mold and condensation become real risks. These aren't obscure random findings. The Pacific Northwest National Laboratory studied them in great detail, and they consistently recover 45 to 63 cents per square foot per year. So for a 25,000 square foot building, that could be $11,000 to $15,000 in recurring annual savings without replacing equipment. But you can't find them without data that crosses every hour and every season. A one-time audit doesn't catch them, and a replacement chiller isn't going to fix them because the underlying problem isn't an equipment issue. They're schedule failures. It's a different category of problem and a different fix, and it's a fix you won't find unless you've got your ground truth data. Here's what happens when a building skips the data layer and goes straight to a capital project. The owner gets a recommendation, usually pattern matched from the auditor's last 3 jobs, for a new chiller, a BAS install, or envelope work. The project costs any amount of money from $50,000 to several $100,000, and it may or may not actually solve the original problems. The owner has no reliable way to verify the result because they never measured the baseline. Utility bills move a little, maybe the weather was different, maybe the tenant mix changed. The savings, if there are any, get absorbed into everything else that shifted. And this isn't a theoretical risk, it's the norm. ASHRAE Guideline 14, which governs measurement and verification for energy projects, exists because post-project savings claims are so routinely unverifiable. The audit to capital project pipeline was designed for a world where monitoring was expensive. But that's not the world we live in anymore. The right order is actually simple. Install the data layer first. Second, get a good baseline across seasons, not weeks. And third, identify the low-cost fixes the data reveals. These could be schedule corrections, setback updates, and deadband adjustments. And then, fourth, quantify what gap remains between the corrected baseline and the performance the building should be capable of. And fifth, and only fifth after you've done the other 4 steps, commit capital to the specific projects the data says are worth committing to. Again, this isn't theoretical, it's also not novel. This is how any engineer should approach a diagnostic problem when they actually have instruments. The reason it's not been the default in small commercial buildings is that until recently, the instruments were just too expensive and bundled as part of a much bigger system. That constraint is gone, and what remains, unfortunately, is the habit of skipping over the data layer out of pure inertia. It's the way things have always been done. Ground truth is the prerequisite. It's not a nice to have, it's not a parallel track, it's the prerequisite. If a consultant, a vendor, or a contractor proposes a capital project in your building without first recommending a data layer, the proposal is incomplete. Ask what the baseline is. How do they know? If the answer is the last utility bill, that isn't a baseline. It's a guess. It's a guess taking a single data point for an entire building. The full written version of this discussion with sources and citations is on FractionalBAS.com. The next video in this series is about what the data usually finds first and why most of those findings cost very little to fix. Thanks for watching.